Getting better at stuff is a lot of fun. Getting better at your class and your role in raid is also a lot of fun. But I think it's a little different based on what you play, whether you're a tank, a healer, DPS, a raid leader, or an officer who really cares about their guild. All of these things really impact how it feels to actually go about getting better and the feelings you'll have in your raid group as the seriousness level is dialed up over time. Here's something that I want to think about though. What are the differences? Does it feel pleasant at different parts of the journey based on what you pick? Like, here's something that I think that everybody would probably agree with. When you're talking about the very best players in the very best groups, regardless of what they're doing in raid, they're enjoying the process of improving, right? So we know whether you're a tank, DPS, a healer, or somebody involved in management, you are having a lot of fun improving if you're extremely good. Not to say that it might not be stressful, but you're really enjoying the process. But when we're talking about people who are currently very casual, I think that it's not really true that everybody's going to have a great experience as they kind of dip their toes into speedrunning. Now, let's say melee DPS. I think that they're going to have an awesome experience. Why? Why would melee DPS have an awesome experience when it comes to getting into speedrunning? Well, they have no resources to manage, right? And they only have agency during combat. That is to say, they only get to make decisions that matter for themselves and others while they're in combat. So what are the negatives even to trying to speedrun as a melee, to trying to go faster in raid? Well, since you're going quicker, you have less time, so you probably can't drink or smoke as easily during raid, and you also probably can't watch TV or YouTube as easily. So that's something that you kind of give up. I know it sounds kind of goofy, but that's a thing a lot of casual people actually kind of care a little about. So as a melee DPS, you can't be as AFK. That's the first negative. The other second negative of going faster is that, well, when you pull things faster, that means you don't have CDs up for every pull. And so CD usage is generally the only other thing that really impacts how you sequence your actions when you're going faster in a raid as a DPS. Because it's not like you are saving. I mean, sometimes you could, but it's not like you're trying to save resources necessarily between every pull. Maybe you want to save some to do an intercept, but it's not like it's really having a complex interaction between the different combat events in the game for you. Whereas for a healer, the different times you spend in combat, they actually do affect each other a lot because you take your mana from the last encounter and you bring it into the next one. And so the script is kind of flipped on healers. It's actually basically it is literally the complete opposite of how warriors and rogues experience this getting better process. Resources are an important thing for healers. It's their whole job, right? So whereas the melee DPS don't manage anything, healers are solely focused basically on managing a resource, their mana, the entire fight. And whereas melee DPS have no agency outside of combat, healers have a ton. That's when they're going to be doing their buffs, and it's when they're going to be drinking. And if your group is not very strong, then chances are that they're not very good at using mana pots, and they're not very good at managing their resources in general, or making sure that they start drinking quickly if there is an appropriate time in your group for them to actually drink. And this is going to mean that the healer player is under a whole lot of pressures that they don't necessarily like. Like healers, they want to get into combat with the raid and they want to heal a whole bunch of people and have no one dead. And that's basically the experience that they want to get. But in the process of getting the healers to be better, you're going to put them in positions where they will make mistakes and people will end up being dead. And that makes the healers upset at themselves and it'll make them upset at the raid group. And it's just the way it is. Whereas for the DPS players, hey, they might die because of the healers, because the raid's getting more serious. That is a total possibility. But what they actually do with their buttons, it doesn't really change a whole lot as you speed the group up. It's just they spend literally less time doing nothing. Now, what's it like for then, we could say, tanks, raid leaders, officers in a guild? How does this all feel? Well, just like we said before, I think at the very high levels of performance, everybody's having a good time. So what about at the early levels of performance for a raid leader? I think they're actually going to have a lot of fun as well. I personally find it really enjoyable to go and start raid leading for new groups that have slower times, and then you have very easy, high productivity problems you get to fight because it's like, oh, okay, like they do AQ, it takes them 3 hours. Like, well, surely they aren't in combat for 3 hours. They're probably in combat for like an hour, and they're spending 2 hours out of combat in the raid doing something. Let's find out what that something is and just cut it out, and then we'll double the speed of the raid. It'll be really easy. That's really fun, and raid leaders get to deal with these very low skill, high reward problems at the start. So I think most raid leaders, when they start getting serious, they see that this is actually fantastic. Like, it's hard to get people to start up on the raid on time, and if we don't start the raid on time, we might not full clear. But if we can get twice as fast as doing the raid, we could start 20 minutes late and I don't even have to care. That's way easier. It's way easier to cut like an hour out of people being AFK in raid than it is to try to get 4 more people to show up 20 minutes earlier. Like, it's a way easier problem. And so that's pretty cool. But then it's not necessarily true for the others that we left out here, which would be like, what's it feel like as a tank when you're first starting to get serious? What's it feel like as maybe a more people management outside the raid type person, like let's say like an officer, and you care about how people treat each other in the guild and what the culture's like? Well, it might actually not be super fun at the start, because while you're trying to get serious in the raid and you're trying to get better about things, you might have people start being assholes to each other. And so it might be that you had 3-hour AQs, and sure, you couldn't do MC and BWL on the same day as AQ, and that sucks, and you would really like it. But at least when your guild wasn't very serious at all, people weren't like pinging each other in Discord and causing fucking fights with each other that you had to get involved in all the time. So like, quite likely, a lot of people who run guilds, they fucking hate trying to get serious at the start, because you start getting everybody to care about this thing, but it's this thing that they all hurt each other on all the time, you know? It's like, it's a lot easier when people like, I like raiding with you guys because I get drunk and then I ignore you and move my character around. I'm like, that was a great time, like not listening in Discord and drinking my beer. That's awesome. But then you get this same guy to care about their DPS, all right? So it's like, now they care about their DPS. All right, you didn't heal me. I care about my DPS. I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to ping you in Discord. I'm going to say something fucking annoying. Like, it's a thing people have to contend with. And it kind of sucks at the start. And when I have joined raid groups and they're new and the players are new and the raid group's not very strong, then somehow I become the raid leader, I've noticed that definitely if I'm not careful with, for example, showing people how to like read Warcraft logs or use like RPB or CLA, like you can actually get people into fights with each other right away. Like I've recently started raid leading for a group on Horde, and I kind of want to show them RPB and CLA, but I'm also kind of worried that if I do that, they're going to just start adding each other about the amount of fucking Sunders and shit. And it's like, yeah, sure, you know, it'd be nice for all you motherfuckers with Sunder, but we spend an hour outside of combat, so I'm not worried about that right now. We will fix that, and then we'll fix the fucking Sunders, you know. But I could just right off the bat go and show everybody Warcraft logs, RPB, CLA, and show them all the little things they could check out with each other, so that way they can purity test each other, and then it'd be not a whole lot of fun. And I think that this one, the whole, as you get your group to care about things, they have something to fight over too. Like, I mean, if you get people in your guild to care about the clear speeds, it's a good thing that they have this thing they can work on together as a team, but also now it's a thing where they have like a PvP activity where they can look at each other as fucking problem children, troublemakers. So there's a negative too, and I think that negative side is quite often I think it's often overstated by people. Like you'll see people will say that being sweaty is stupid, and that like it requires you to be toxic or something, which is like absolutely not true. But it is a great fear that exists in the minds of people who run guilds, and so it's pretty easy for the raid leader to be stoked about, guys, we just cut 45 minutes off the time. Like AQ, instead of it being 3 hours, it's 2 hours and 15. They're like, hell yeah, and they feel over the moon. And then, you know, they're like, we're gonna make it even better, and they post all these tools people can use to analyze each other's play. And then there's like some recruitment officer who's getting like a whole bunch of DMs from people about how they're like getting bullied basically about their raid performance and shit like that. And so then they're not into it, you know. Or tanks could be an entirely different thing. So it's like healers, you know, healers don't like speeding up because it forces errors and makes them have to manage their resources better. DPS do like it because it gives them no additional responsibilities to speed up. It just lets them have more fun. People managers that are strictly like tying their identity basically to the raid's performance, like raid leaders, it's really easy for them to like getting better at the start because they get to just cut a ton of time off the raid and it takes no skill and they get to feel like a genius for it. Like, hell yeah, lucky you, dude. But then the people managers in the guild, they might actually not like it because you might get more serious. Your guild might get more serious and then people might just like each other a lot less. Your guild might get better at raiding and then people like your guild less. Yeah, very weird, right? Weird idea, right? You make the guild better and it's actually made it worse. Ooh. Kind of interesting. And then finally we can have tanks. And tanks, I think it can be kind of weird for them when you get more serious because their role just becomes a lot more dynamic when you're serious because you start changing strategies. And I'd say that in general, tanking has some of the lowest skill stuff to do in Classic because basically you're a DPS. That DPS is the boss from the front and you don't have to worry about face pulling. You just kind of run onto things. And keeping threat is not really a very high skill activity. I know a lot of people, they'll like talk about tanking as if it's like super high skill. Well, it's like just because the tank's involved in a lot of fuck ups and raids doesn't necessarily mean that it's high skill. Or put another way, the role of the tank being extremely consequential does not mean that it's high skill. But if you're going from 3-hour clears and then trying to get to like 1-hour clears in AQ, chances are as the tank, you're going to be changing what you do like every fucking raid, just a little bit on a whole bunch of different spots. And so if you're not the guy that's like the progenitor of this seriousness increase in your raid group, then it'd be pretty easy for you as one of the tanks in this group that's getting more serious to feel like a little left behind or left out on like some of the strat stuff, and you forget something or someone doesn't tell something to you and you fuck up on a fight and you cause an enormous screw up, and it's like you would probably know that if you're being more chill, like as in raid strategy wise, you wouldn't have made that mistake because you guys would have been doing a different strategy that you're more familiar with, and that can be uncomfortable and not fun, and nobody likes being up in front of basically 39 other people and making a fuck up and costing everybody their world buffs. But that's kind of like part and parcel to being a tank in a more serious group and learning there. It's just kind of a thing that happens. You will mess up and ruin everyone's night. But that's not something that people are necessarily really into, and it takes a lot of time to get comfortable with that. I just find all this stuff, I find it fascinating, and I try to like think about why I think people play the way they do. Because I remember getting into the game on a private server before 2019 and thinking I just wanted to smoke weed and drink beer and hang out with people. But not to hang out with them too much. Like, I mostly wanted to be, like, AFK and raid and, like, hit my buttons really good on the bosses and not pay attention at all on trash and just be fucked up all night. That's, like, what I thought I wanted to do. And then I started playing, and I couldn't find a guild, so I made one, which sounds crazy, but I played a rogue on a private server, and I literally couldn't get anybody to let me in their raid group. It doesn't sound believable. That's what happened. So I made a guild, and then I found that it was just really hard having extremely long raid nights. It made the management of everyone's time really difficult, and so I started getting more serious about speedrunning before knowing speedrunning was a thing, just because I wanted to have more free time. And then just slowly have found that getting more and more serious about the game is actually in a lot of ways less work than not being serious about it, but it does expose you to different problems. Anyways, if you like raiding pretty seriously, hit me up. I got like a 43-minute AQ. It's not super good, but it's pretty good. And then also got a couple other runs. I don't know. I got raids that I run on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday on Dream Scythe and Night Slayer. Dream Scythe Horde, Night Slayer Alliance. Hit me up if you're looking for a guild. Peace, guys.